We go to item number 7, contract extension with DFL on continuation at Juvenile Justice Board. Before I go any further, I want to welcome Representative King.
Good morning.
For coming.
Thank you.
Number 7.
Real briefly, and I think Pat wants to speak, but we approved a contract extension in December of this contract through February 15th. And the Juvenile Justice Board, in working on their programs and the developments, discovered that we weren't getting as far as we would hope to have by February 15th. So it only made sense to DFL to go ahead and extend their contract through the end of the fiscal year, which is when the grant expires as well. So that's why I put this contract extension on there. But Pat, if you have something to say, please come up.
I just want to elaborate a little bit more on this. DFL Associates had actually submitted a letter to the board and to the county manager in late November, saying that they were not intending to renew their contract beyond the December 31st, but that we then later said we would stay through February 15th. The reasons for that really were multiple. One is that there were some other opportunities that had presented themselves. Another one was just the demands, the staff demands that would place on the staff other than myself that would be picking up some extra duties. And another one was really a very personal reason, which is the fact that I have a 94-year-old mother who is in her later years and is requiring a lot of her daughter's time. And so it makes my personal schedule, in addition to my professional demands, pretty latent right now. So that was our intention, and the board actually requested that on the advice of the state consultant for their JJAC program, which really is the group that decides on the level of grant funding and who's going to get funded, etc., that the current coordinator and the current contract remain in place through June 30th, because that would cover the grant application, and it would also cover the period of consideration on funding, and would be a natural transition that would not then be likely to impact any decisions on grant funding for Torrance County to implement this program. And so we agreed to do that, and as part of that, we are tasked with piloting a couple of the new programs and just getting all of the pieces in place that need to be in place so that they are able to be fully implemented with the new funding that will come through with the new grant, which would be a substantial, hopefully it would be a substantial increase in funding for the grant. It has occurred to me that there is very little history with the current commission and DFL Associates. And so I think it's important that I give you a little bit of the history. And so I prepared a couple of things, and I won't take up a lot of your time, but I do want to take up a little bit of your time because I think it's important. So I'm going going to take you on a little bit of a walk down memory lane. This is a copy of the program summary that I prepared for the county at the end of, or moving into the end of the FY 2009 year, which would have been from July 1 of 2008 until June 30 of 2009. And it also then was preparing us to move into 2010. At that point in time, I was the director of the Torrance County Project Office and essentially was managing the majority of the grants for Torrance County that were social service related, with the exception of the DWI grant and a couple of others. But it was the majority of the grants. And I prepared this summary to kind of show in a nutshell what impact that level of funding had on the county in terms of the good things that happened and the good things that the county was able to essentially do for the residents of the county. And I also did an economic impact on the county, and I showed that in that period of time, and that was for that 1 year period of time, based on the amount of money that was being spent by the county, the benefit that actually had. At that point in time, the total grant funding for that particular year was $674,740 in all the various grant funds. I'd like to point out to you that when I came into that particular position in 2005, there was, if I remember correctly, $295,000 in funding. And so I have always been proud of the fact that I was able to build the community coalitions and the connections with the state, but also write grants, manage programs, and facilitate program audits with all of our program managers at the state and federal level that were satisfactory. So of that $674,740, $417,024 was spent on all of the employees of DFL Associates that were affiliated with those programs. And the economic impact was based on a Kirtland Air Force base model, and I had chosen that because it was a federal government model, and a lot of our funding was coming through some federal grant funding. And so using that model, which essentially takes the number of personnel times the multiplier that they were using, which was 1.3, and the average per capita income for a Torrance County resident in that year, and that was $24,030. In addition to the 24 people who were actually working on the projects, the additional jobs created in the county that year would have been 31.2. Additional dollars generated would have been 749,736 for a total number of jobs of 55, and the total dollars based on salary figures only of $1,166,760. And then I itemized some of that so you would understand where the rest of the expenditures went and how that benefited our local businesses. In that particular year, the transportation program was utilizing all local businesses for fuel, vehicle maintenance, tire replacement, and repairs. And so we expended $80,918.73 on fuel and $12,358.05 on vehicle maintenance and repairs. In addition, that was when the transportation program was at full operation, and we completed a total of 14,553 passenger trips that year. And that was also the year where we had the lowest administrative cost of any rural transportation program in the state, ratio of any rural transportation program in the state. Then on the next page, you will see that I did the projections for FY 2010 and the projected service levels for FY 2010. And so the projected funding levels, which were pretty much in hand at that point in time, would have been $826,703, and it was pretty close to that in 2010. The target numbers, the people that we were going to be serving through the adolescent pregnancy prevention program was 30 mid-school and high school students, 240 parents, community members, or adult professionals. Through the Children's Trust Fund program, 24 parents, 32 adults, 64 children, and 300 individuals impacting 900 family members. We also were anticipating, based on the current service levels, that we would be dispensing 120 low or no-cost car seats. We were projecting that we would be handling through the Project Office Community Health Improvement Services. That was the MCH grant that allowed for the coordination of the and sustaining of the Partnership for a Healthy Torrance County. 24,000. We also were projecting that we would be under the domestic violence program and victim services, serving 100 adults and 102 child witnesses. Through our offender treatment services, 50 adult offenders. We would be conducting, and this was contractually obligated, 4 community trainings, and the DV task force was meeting on a quarterly basis then. Through the Drug-Free Communities Grant, in September and March, we conducted youth leadership summits, the Substance Abuse Prevention Forum task force meetings, started a social norms marketing campaign, and also began some social hosting education initiatives, working with the City of Moriarty, the city and the county attorney, and then seeing that grow. So the nuisance abatement ordinances now have been adopted in Moriarty and in Estancia. And we worked with the Santa Fe City group to kind of bring some technical support in on that. Through the home visiting program, we were projecting that we would serve 20 unduplicated families. We were going to provide Medicaid enrollment for 850 individuals, and then we had all of our transportation services through the JARC services, 1,440 client trips, and through the public transportation, 14,800 client trips. We actually did make those targets in 2010 for all of our programs. But then what happened? Because I know that this is a question that has come up. What happened was that in about the, let's say the third quarter of 2010, it became very evident that the economic downturn or recession, however you want to term it, had hit New Mexico in a significant way. And New Mexico had lagged behind the rest of the country. And there also simultaneously, it was discovered, had been at the state level some significant misdirection or misappropriation of various funds from retirement to investment funds. As a result, at the as we would have been gearing up for the fiscal year 2011, the adolescent pregnancy prevention program was cut to $25,000. The Children's Trust Fund program, which would have expired and did expire, so we wouldn't have been eligible for it for the next year anyway, but they weren't renewing any of the grants. The Community Health Improvement, which was the Health Council funding, was totally removed from any state funding. The domestic violence program funding, which we wouldn't have had to begin with had it not been for Representative King, was cut. The Drug-Free Communities funding was actually at $90,710 in FY 2009. In FY 2010, we had written the reapplication for a second full round of funding, and so that actually increased to $99,283. CYFD home visiting funding remained at $63,000, and MOSA PE funding was projected at $53,125 and remained consistent, but in 2011, there was no more SCI, and so a lot of that funding was, our availability to provide services was decreased. The commission decided at that point in time that it was not going to be feasible for them to continue the transportation program because of the match involved, and so it was their decision that the transportation grants not be reapplied for. All of that is the history, and I wanted you to know the history because I realize there are very few people in this commission that were there to know the history. And I also wanted you to know why DFL has made the decisions that it has along the way. At the end of 2010, when I told the commission that DFL had decided after much wrangling that we were not going to continue our management contract for the project office. Essentially, it was because the board of DFL Associates made a financial decision that it was time to get closer to our original corporate mission, which was providing corporate consultant services in areas of management and resource development and not direct services. And that was a corporate decision. I continued with the adolescent pregnancy prevention program because the commission at that time approached us and asked us if we would please continue that program because it was directly youth related. So that's where we are today. I would ask that you, for the sake of the program, the juvenile justice program moving forward, would renew our contract through June 30th. And I thank you for your support and for being there for the people of Torrance County, of whom I am one.
Well, thank you, Pat. For me, it's easy to do this because I've worked with Pat for quite a few years. Her professionalism is second to none, as far as I'm concerned. And that's my comment on Pat. He is an outstanding citizen of this county, I believe.
Thank you.
Where are we going to make a motion?
That's all of you.
I move that we approve the contract extension.
I have a second.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Pat.